This is our third week of digging deeper into the core of the core in our adult education program of Grace United Methodist Church in Winfield, Kansas. Now, the core of the good news according to the Gospel of Matthew is the Sermon on the Mount, and the core of the Sermon on the Mount are the Beatitudes. And so the Beatitudes, as we've looked at in the last couple of weeks, are the governing principles that have to do with following Jesus. They're attitudes to live by, be attitudes. And whereas the Ten Commandments in the Hebrew library determine what one did, the Beatitudes determine the character of a person, who one is. Now, as we consider the second Beatitude this week, I'm going to again refer to a translation and two versions. The translation is, in the RSV, Revised Standard Version, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." The Message by Eugene Peterson reads, "You're blessed when you feel you've lost what is most dear. Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you." And the native version reads, "Creator's blessing rests on the ones who walk the trail of tears, for he will wipe the tears from their eyes and comfort them." Wow. Because of my personal journey of faith with the indigenous Indian community, I want to really start this week with that native version of this beatitude, for it refers to the common historical reference in the Indian community of the Trail of Tears. When Indian tribes were displaced from their native lands, and most walked the Trail of Tears to an unknown future and an unknown land, they were in mourning. A friend of ours knocked on the door in Oklahoma City one day, and he and his family were there, and they gave to us 4 original paintings of the Trail of Tears experience that they purchased from an artist. And they knew of our interest, our friends knew of our interest in the Indian heritage and community. And as the artist shared the experience of the Trail of Tears, they decided to purchase all 4 paintings for Karen and myself. I've looked at these pictures through the years and have always been captured by 2 things of the Indians that she portrayed. One is that the facial expression in common was they were mourning, but they had a sense of confidence in their mourning. And there was always action in the pictures as they walked the Trail of Tears. They were not stuck. Now, the common word-for-word translation of this beatitude is blessed. They will be comforted, those who mourn. And comfort is an interesting word. COM means with, forte means strength. They will experience strength in their mourning. Tears, sadness, the feeling that one has lost what was most dear. For the Indians, they lost their place, their land, and often each other. As we recall that the Gospel according to Matthew was written as a case statement to persuade those of Jewish faithfulness to follow Jesus. The experience of losing what you thought was most dear was right at the heart of the legacy of the Hebrew people. For indeed, they were displaced. They were in Egypt. Centuries later, they were displaced. They were in Babylon in captivity. Indeed, they had lost their nation. Indeed, they finally lost the temple. For the Jewish audience, this beatitude was like a powerful magnet drawing them closer to the faith journey of following Jesus. Why? Because that audience knew what it meant to mourn. They had walked their own trail of tears. They had lost what they thought was the most dear to them, but through all, they exhibited confidence, experiencing strength in the cradle of mourning, the cradle of tears and the cradle of loss. They experienced strength and developed the attitude of confidence. Now, this teaching of Jesus of losing what was most dear is the universal experience of human life. Not only for the Jews, not only for the indigenous Indians, but for all of us, you and me. We've all walked our own trail of tears. We have lost from time to time what is most dear to us. And Jesus taught that the faithful are not exempt from mourning, loss, and tears. Rather, the faithful cope with this journey with a blessing of comfort, of strength which is not our own, but is experienced as the divine within us enables us to face the future. The destiny is a question mark. Amidst mourning and tears, we don't really know where we're headed, but we know a truth of the gospel, Emmanuel, and that word means God with us. Not ahead of us, not behind us, but with us at our sides. You see, Emmanuel, God with us, is what it means to be with forte, comforted. Emmanuel, whatever brings tears to our eyes, as the Indian community would say, the Great Spirit is with us every step of the way. This presence gives a sense of confidence, even as we mourn. I experienced this when I walked with two friends who experienced the death of a child within a month of each other. Both were just incredible parents. One absolutely fell apart. They were stuck and they could not move. The other friend shed tears, mourned, but somehow moved on. And we all marveled at this person who woke up every morning in grief, fixated on finding a new future, a new opportunity to do something special for somebody else. One was comforted, the other was not. This person had no strength to take a step. The other walked. But the parent from whom I learned the most was the one who had no forte, no confidence, no strength to take a step, stuck, immovable. But I saw that person move to a new beginning. Indeed, blessed are those who are on the trail of tears. This person discovered that love would never leave her alone. And time again, she said no to persons who were angels coming with the love of God to her life. She slammed the door on more than one of us, rejected, stuck in tears. But finally, a new beginning occurred. And this wonderful human being was a new person, walking instead of being stuck, in tears, but with a sense of confidence for the future. And as long as I knew that person, and if that person is alive today, I'm convinced that they will open their wallet and share a very simple note that reads, Matthew 5:4. Indeed, blessed are those who mourn. You see, those native persons who walked the trail of tears with their head held high tell that story. And they tell that story that indeed on that journey, those who walked the trail of tears had received the greatest gift, and that is, quote, that the Great Spirit walked with them every step of the way. You see, that's what I call the attitude of confidence. Indeed, being comforted with strength. What an attitude to live by. Indeed, for two of the components of the character of those who faithfully follow Jesus, one last week we discovered was serenity, keeping your life focused on what is beyond the present. And this week, confidence, walking forward with strength, even as we mourn. Let's think about that and talk about that this week. And questions that might start you on your way are, what are your personal experiences of the Great Spirit walking with you on your own personal trail of tears? Secondly, what are your experiences of receiving the presence of divine love through the lives of others? And finally, what's the difference between walking ahead, behind, or with another? Thanks for being a part of our journey.